Hello everybody! Have you ever noticed that although everyone agrees it takes two people to make a baby, here in Ireland only pregnant people are criminalised for avoiding parenthood? By law, if Sam and Charlie aren't married, and if Sam becomes pregnant, after knowing Charlie in the biblical sense, then Charlie simply needs to move out of the house to avoid parenthood. Charlie's only obligation is to provide financial support to the child. But what about Sam? If Sam doesn't want to have a baby, there's no option to simply walk out of the situation. And since abortion is illegal in Ireland, Sam will automatically become the only legal guardian of the little bundle of joy. In other words, with regard to parenthood, our laws are wonderfully pro-choice towards anyone who provides sperm, but anti-choice to anyone who can get knocked up. People who can get pregnant are largely held responsible for the prevention of a possible unwanted pregnancy, and the burden of contraception is carried overwhelmingly by them. People who can get pregnant are also the only ones who carry the burden of a pregnancy, who give life, and who bear the legal responsibility of babies if they're not married. Ironically, while they're given all of these important duties to carry, they're not considered good enough to take decisions on their own when it comes to what happens inside their uterus. If you're starting to think that the moral arguments revolving around the sanctity of life are simply false flags covering up a power structure which seeks the subjugation of people who can get pregnant, it's alright. That's just the red pill kicking in. Seriously, ask yourself, why is it that our conversations about abortion always revolve around pregnant people's so-called moral responsibility? Why is it the pregnant person's partner hardly ever gets mentioned? Why is it the pregnant person is so often assumed to be a cisgender woman, when people who can get pregnant include some transgender men, some non-binary individuals, and some gender non-conforming people? Now, here's a metaphor to understand what's going on. If you take a photo of your family and you're holding the camera, selfies aside, you're not going to be in the frame. Being the one who holds the camera doesn't simply allow you to decide who gets in the frame, but also who stays out of the frame. The point is that the way a debate is framed allows you to guess who set the frame in the first place. In the context of a patriarchal society that perpetuates itself by maintaining a rigid and binary gender system, there's no mystery as to why the abortion debate often excludes trans, non-binary and non-gender conforming people by assuming all pregnant people to be cisgender women. No question as to why this debate is framed in a way that favours conclusions likely to oppress people who can get pregnant while reinforcing cis male privileges. Now, you might argue that women do have a way to avoid parenthood by filing for adoption. As a result, you might deny that abortion debate is framed as a moral issue, only to hide an underlying power struggle. But this fails in two regards. First, it fails to consider pregnancies are basically a public event. Giving up a child for adoption in this day and age hardly goes unnoticed. Yet the practice is still stigmatised a great deal. Second, this fails to consider that in some cases, bringing a pregnancy to term can be extremely traumatic and can cause permanent physiological changes to the person's body. And no, you can't address this problem by creating exceptions to allow, say, rape survivors to get an abortion. Why? Because rapes are notoriously hard to prove. Because by the time a case is won, it's often too late to practice an abortion. And because the legal procedure can be traumatic, especially if the rape survivor loses the case. Asking pregnant people to prove their case before they can access abortion is guaranteed to cause unnecessary suffering on top of the harm already caused by rape or incest. It will simply reinforce patriarchal oppression by making rape culture more effective at damaging rape survivors' lives. Another indication that the moral arguments are just false flags in the fact that the 8th Amendment cannot make abortion disappear, it just makes it unsafe and expensive. Despite Irish abortion laws being among the most restrictive in Europe, they don't stop abortions from happening. The problem is merely exported abroad, with thousands of pregnant people travelling every year to get an abortion, while the people who don't have the means or the right to go abroad sometimes decide to risk 14 years of prison by self-administering illegal abortion pills. In the end, the 8th Amendment's only achievement is to hit the most vulnerable the hardest, to reinforce male privilege and to oppress people who can get pregnant by making abortion unsafe, and by further traumatising people who, like Miss Y, have tried to prove their pregnancy was a threat to their life. 'Cause yeah, that's what it takes in Ireland to have your rights over your body. This is not about fixing the current law and making it less restrictive. The 8th Amendment affects us all by reinforcing class division and patriarchy. So let's do it! Let's repeal the 8th! Let's do it now!